Today we're going to be having a look at and showing you how to install the Hydrastar Marine Electric over Hydraulic Actuator with Breakaway and 7-way RV harness, rated at 1600 PSI. This is part number HS381-9067. Now the reason you're going to want an electric over hydraulic actuator to control your trailer brakes such as this one is because it's far superior than your typical surge coupler style brakes that your boat trailers normally have. With your surge brakes, you have no control over it whatsoever. With this, you can dial up or down the intensity of the brakes being applied with the brake controller inside your truck. Also, when you go to back up your trailer, with surge brakes, as soon as you start to back up, the brakes are being applied. The more force that you're using to back up, the harder the brakes are going to be applied, unless you have a manual lockout, which you have to get out of your truck, engage the lockout so you can back up without the brakes being applied. With this, where you have your brake controller set up at when you're backing up, that's how much the brakes are going to be applied. So it makes it easier to back your boat into the water down the ramp, but yet you still have some brake assistance there, so you don't have all the weight of the boat or the trailer dragging you into the water. Also, with the surge coupler, the way the brakes are applied is the weight of the boat and the trailer start to push the coupler against your truck. And as the coupler collapses, it applies pressure to the fluid and engages the brakes. So there is a delay of the brakes being applied. With the actuator here being electric over hydraulic, it's immediate. There is no delay, so as soon as we start to activate our brakes in our vehicle, the brakes are being applied on our trailer. Now this is a marine rated actuator. By being marine rated, we have an aluminum construction here which is corrosion resistant, and it is also vented to help relieve pressure and let moisture escape. This will ensure that our brakes will operate appropriately and we don't get any moisture inside our unit causing corrosion and damage. Our gaskets inside are also marine rated, so you don't have to worry about salt water corroding them. Now what's great about this kit compared to other options out there is that this comes with everything you need in order to convert your existing boat trailer or other trailer that has hydraulic surge brakes over to one that has electric over hydraulic setup. We have our actuator, a new junction box to hold all of our wiring, and a 7-way plug so we can utilize the brake controller inside of our vehicle, which is great since most boat trailers only come with a 5-pole flat to get the reverse signal out to your lockout for your actuator. We also have this breakaway kit with this nice battery box here, which is self-charging, so you don't have to worry about taking the battery out to charge it. It has a built-in charger, and we can check the condition of the battery by pushing this button on the top. We also have the breakaway switch, which will apply our trailer brakes in the unlikely event that our trailer came disconnected from our truck. With the pin pulled, you can hear the brakes being applied. This kit is rated up to 1600 PSI, so it will be perfect for our disc brake applications on our trailers. It is rated to support trailers up to 3 axles, anywhere from 1 to 3. Now one thing that I really like about this kit, and with electric over hydraulic brakes in general, when comparing them to surge couplers, by having so much more control over them, we can activate our brakes manually from inside our vehicle by using the manual brake override on our brake controller. So if our trailer starts to sway side to side on us and we need to bring it back in line of our vehicle, we can use the manual override by sliding the adjuster over just to slow our trailer down and bring it back in line. With the surge coupler, you can't do that. Many of our customers feel that this is a much safer way of towing their trailer behind their vehicle. Now when comparing this actuator to other electric over hydraulic actuators out there, such as the Dexter DX series, this is a much slimmer design actuator, so we're much more versatile in our mounting solutions. It'll work great on top of narrow channel frame trailers such as this one. Now for a few measurements to better assist you in choosing mounting locations for your components. Our actuator measures 11 3/4 inches long. It is 3 inches wide at its widest point, and it is 7 3/8 of an inch tall from the bottom to the top of the cap. Our junction box at its longest points measures 6 3/4 of an inch long. At its widest point, it is 3.5 inches wide. and it is 2 1/4 inch tall. Now the battery box for our breakaway system is 5 7/16 of an inch long. It is 4 1/4 inch wide. It is also 4 1/4 inch tall. Our 7-way cable measures 6 feet long from the very end to where it goes into our junction box. And now that we've gone over some features, we'll show you how to get it installed. To begin our install, we need to find a place to mount our actuator. In our particular case, since we are working on a boat trailer which already had hydraulic surge brakes on it, we're going to mount ours on the center channel of our trailer here because this will protect it the most from side to side. We also want to make sure that our hydraulic fitting is facing where the brake line comes out of our current cylinder. We'll take a drill now and go through each one of the holes in our 4 corners to make a pilot hole. With our pilot holes now drilled, we'll now secure it in place with our provided self-tapping screws. Now we need to find a spot to mount our junction box for all of our wiring. We're just going to put ours right behind our Hydrastar unit. This way our wires can easily go inside the unit. So we'll mark out our holes by making a pilot hole with our drill. Now on our junction box here, I like to point out there's 2 holes on one side and 1 hole on the other side. We'll want to have the side of our 2 holes facing towards the front of our trailer. That way we'll have our 7-way come out of 1 hole, and then the wires that go in from our Hydrastar unit will go in the other hole. Now we'll secure this in place with our self-tappers. Now we need to find a position to mount our breakaway switch. We're going to mount ours on the outside of our passenger side of our trailer right here, as far front as we possibly can. We don't want to attach to our coupler area here because this coupler will be replaced at some point with one that is not a hydraulic surge coupler. So we'll mark where we want it and drill a pilot hole. Now we'll mount our breakaway switch, ensuring that our pin faces the front of the trailer. Line up the hole. We'll ensure that it's as level as possible, and we'll secure it in place with the self-tapping screw. Now we need to find a location to mount our breakaway battery box. We're going to mount ours on the inside of our passenger side frame, about right next to where we mounted our junction box. Now, depending on your application, this may be a little bit more difficult for you to do because of clearance. So we're using a right angle drill to make this easier for us. We're going to mark out our top holes first. Okay, we have our upper holes marked out now. So now we're going to drill those holes out completely. Okay, now we'll secure it in place with our self-tapping screws. We went ahead and repeated the same process for our bottom screws. This way our breakaway battery box is securely mounted. And now we can start working on our wiring. We'll lift off our cover for our junction box. Inside, we'll find several color-coded terminals. We'll take the end of our 7-way now and one of our plugs here. You'll notice how the plug is sealed, but there's a small pinhole in it. We'll just poke our wires through that pinhole. Okay, with the wires poked through, we'll just push this down until it's covering our sleeve here on the wiring. We'll have the flat part facing up, and we'll slide this opening here through the slot in our box. Now we'll take our wire clamp here, set it over our 7-way wires, and we'll clamp the wires in place with our provided screws. Our junction box is color coded to the exact same colors of the wires from our 7-way connector. So we'll strip back insulation from each wire, crimp on a connector, and match it up to the corresponding color. Now some of these wires are thicker than other ones. For the thicker wires, we'll use the yellow connectors. For the thinner wires, we'll use the blue connectors. The yellows are meant for 10 to 12 gauge wiring, and the blues are meant for 14 to 16 gauge. Now as we work our way closer to where our connector enters the box, we can actually cut off excess wiring so we don't have to have too much slack inside here, and it gives us a cleaner install. Now the ring terminals that we crimped on are heat shrink ring terminals. So we'll use a heat gun to shrink down the ring terminals to make sure we have a nice weather-tight seal. You'll want to use a heat gun over a lighter because a heat gun does provide a source of indirect heat versus an open flame. The indirect heat won't damage the connector like a direct flame will from a lighter. We have these heat guns available on our website. Here's what it looks like with our heat shrink ring terminal shrunk down. As you can see, it goes around our wire and seals nicely, so we don't have to worry about any moisture getting inside. Now we'll take the wires that come from our Hydrastar unit itself. We'll separate the yellow one, so we'll just have the black, the blue, and the white. We'll take another one of these grommets here, and we'll push those 3 wires through it. Now we'll take the 3 wires from our Breakaway battery. We'll separate the blue, taking the black and the white, and we'll push those through that grommet as well. Now we'll take the wiring that went to our existing trailer plug. We already went ahead and cut that off, and we're just left with the wiring that runs our lights for our tail lights, our marker lights, our turn signals, and brake lights. And we'll shove that through the grommet as well. Now we'll take the short segment of white wire that comes with the kit, and this will be our ground wire for our trailer, and we'll shove this through the grommet. With all of the wires that we now need through our grommet, we can place the grommet inside the junction box. Now we'll take our clamp, go over our wires, and we'll secure them in place so they don't get pulled out. Now we'll take the blue wire from our Hydrastar unit, and we'll crimp on one of our heat shrink ring terminals, and we'll place that over the terminal in our junction box that has the blue wire from our 7-way going to it. It's also the terminal with the blue dot over it. We'll measure off how much of our black wire we're going to need to connect to the black terminal from our Hydrastar unit. Cut off the excess, and we'll strip back some insulation. We'll crimp on a ring terminal. We'll measure off how much wire we need from the white wire from the Hydrastar unit. Strip back some insulation, and we'll crimp on the terminal. Place that over the stud with the white dot. The short strand of white wire that we passed through for our ground, we'll strip back some insulation, and we'll crimp on a terminal there. Place that over the stud as well. Okay, now we'll take the white wire from our Breakaway kit, measure off how much we're going to need here. Strip back some insulation, and we'll crimp on a ring terminal there. Place that over the stud too. Okay. Now we'll take the black wire from the Breakaway kit, Measure off what we're going to need. Cut off the excess. Strip back some insulation. And we'll crimp on one of our ring terminals. Now, just like we did before, we'll shrink down all of our ring terminals with the heat gun. Okay, now that we have all of our ring terminals heat shrinked inside for our white terminal, our black terminal, our blue terminal, we can install the nuts. The white terminal, this is our ground. The black terminal, that's our constant 12-volt power. The blue, that is the electric trailer brake output from our truck. This is where the Hydrastar unit will get its signal to operate from the brake controller inside of our truck. We'll also put a nut over the yellow terminal. We're not attaching any other wires here, just the wire from our 7-way connector. This is for the reverse output signal from our truck. If you had reverse lights in your trailer, they would hook in here. Now we need to work on hooking up our trailer's light circuits to our 3 terminals that are left. We'll have a red one, a green one, and a brown one. The brown one is for our trailer's right turn signal and right brake light. And that gets our green wire. So we'll separate our green wire. All this wiring here was already on our trailer. Measure off how much we're going to need. Cut off the excess. Strip back some insulation. And we'll crimp on one of our small diameter heat shrink ring terminals. Now we're going to use this green terminal here. This is for our tail lights and running lights. And that will get the brown wires. So we'll separate our other brown wire from this yellow wire here. Measure off what we're going to need. Cut off the excess. Strip back insulation from both of those brown wires. And we'll twist these 2 wires together. And we'll crimp on one of our larger diameter yellow ring terminals to those 2 wires. And that leaves us with our yellow wire for our left turn signal and our left brake light. And that'll go to the red terminal here. Cut off our excess. Strip out the insulation. Take one of our remaining ring terminals. And we'll crimp that into place. Now we'll use a heat gun and we'll shrink down our terminals. Okay, with those all shrunk down now, we'll place them over the proper studs. And we'll install our nuts. Okay, now that we have all of our wiring connections made inside of our junction box, we can install our grommets in the locations where wires can pass through that we're not using. So we have one on this side and one on the back side. And we can install the lid now. Now the short white wire that we added for our ground that came with our kit, we'll strip off some insulation from the other end of it, and we'll crimp on the final ring terminal that comes with the kit. And we'll shrink down the insulation. Now this ring terminal needs to be attached to the frame of our trailer, and this will ground all of our wiring that we've installed. So we're going to mark out a section on our frame where we can drill a hole for it. And then we'll drill a pilot hole. With our pilot hole made, we'll now secure the ring terminal in place with the self-tapping screw. Now the blue wire from our Breakaway battery and the yellow wire from our Hydrastar unit, these need to connect to the wires on our Breakaway switch. It doesn't matter which wire connects to which on this, because since it's a switch, once the pin is pulled, it closes the circuit, so it doesn't matter how you connect this. As you can see, we're not going to have enough wire to do this, so we will have to supply some of our own wire. If you need to pick up some wire on our website, you can pick it up as part number 12-1-1 for 12 gauge wire. It's sold by the foot. So we'll start by stripping off some insulation from one of the wires. Now because we are extending our wires, we are going to need some more butt connectors. These are still heat shrink butt connectors. These are for 14 to 16 gauge wires. They will work on 10 to 12 gauge wires as well. You can pick these up on our website if you need some. Crimp that on, take our extra wire that we have, strip off some insulation, stick that in the other end of the butt connector, and we'll crimp that into place. Measure off how much we're going to need, cut off the excess, strip back some insulation, crimp on another butt connector, take one of the wires from our Breakaway, strip off some insulation, stick that in the other end, and we'll crimp that down. Now we'll repeat the same process for the other wire. With all of our connections made, we'll shrink down those connectors with our heat gun. With all of our connections made, we went ahead and used our provided wire loom to help conceal our wiring and give us a nice clean look. Now with our wire loom, we're going to want to secure this to our trailer. Now in order to secure a wire loom to our trailer, we have these zip tie attachment points that have double-sided tape on the back of them. These come with our kit. We'll take some soapy water or rubbing alcohol and we'll clean off our frame where we're going to stick our attachment points. This way they have a better chance of adhering well. So the zip tie will go through it, wrap around a wire loom. We'll cut off our excess zip ties. We went ahead and repeated the same process just to secure the rest of the wire loom to the trailer so we don't snag it on anything and give us a nice clean look. And now we need to locate our brake line that goes to the back. In our case, ours is right here, going into a reverse lockout solenoid, and we'll disconnect this brake line. Okay, we have our brake line where we have easy access to our fitting now. We need to connect this fitting to the fitting on our actuator. It's not going to be long enough, so we're going to use a flexible rubber hose, which we have available on our website, in order to make this connection. Now, depending on your application, you may need a different length than what we're using. We have many different options available for you, so just use the search feature on our website and search for the length that you need. So we'll take the female end and we'll thread it onto the male end and we'll snug that down. Now we'll remove the plug from our actuator, place in the fitting from our brake hose, screw it into place, and we'll snug it down. Now we need to fill our reservoir fluid. Take the cap off. We'll use a fresh, unopened bottle of brake fluid. And we'll fill it up. With it full, we'll replace the cap and we'll begin the bleeding process. And now we'll take the yellow cap off the bleeder screw on our actuator. Now we have access to the top of our bleeder screw and the nut. We'll take a wrench, stick it over the nut. We'll place a container with a hose on it to catch our brake fluid on that. Now we have two ways of bleeding our brakes. We can hook up to our vehicle and have someone operate the brake controller, a manual override inside the vehicle, or we can have someone pull our breakaway pin. So we'll go ahead and pull the pin now, and we'll crack open the bleeder screw, and we'll close it, reinstall the pin. What we're looking for is clean fluid coming out of our hose with no air bubbles. We'll repeat this process a couple of times. Go ahead. With it clean fluid coming out, we'll pull the hose off, reinstall our cap, and double check our fluid level, topping it off as necessary. We'll replace the cap. Now we'll go back and bleed the brakes themselves with the bleeder screws on our calipers, starting with the one furthest away from our actuator and working our way towards the front. Okay, we're now ready to have the breakaway pin pulled again. We'll open our bleeder. And we'll repeat this process until we have nice clean fluid coming through. We'll do this on all of our wheels. And that completes our look at the Hydrastar Marine Electric over Hydraulic Actuator with Breakaway and 7-way RV harness rated at 1600 PSI. This is part number HS381-9067.